Welcome to an episode of Vidhi, Footprints and Sands of Time. This is a tale of survivors and achievers.
There's a famous Sanskrit shloka that goes Vidvatvam cha nrupatvam cha naivatulyam kadachana swadeshe pujyate rajan vidvan sarvatra pujyate. It says that the glory and the extolation of a scholar goes beyond the provinces of his land. And greeting to have all of you here, and it's an absolute honor to have you, sir. We thank you for the opportunity that you have given. So throughout your life, you have seen many twists and turns, many trials and tribulations, and it will be a matter of pride for us to sit with you today and to learn about all of them. And I'm sure out of the poetry of your life, a prose or two can inspire many. So sir, are you ready to revisit your own life in your own show?
Thank you, Sarup, thank you, Gauri, for inviting me. Such an honor. Thank you.
We want to start by just going back to 1966 and then following up after that. So you were born in the garden city of Bengaluru, much quieter then, I'm sure. How was your childhood, sir? The best memories of it?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I was born on a Shivratri, so it's Feb 19th, 1966, and had an awesome time. I mean, my parents, my dad, Dr Rao, is an engineer. He was at that point of time working in Bharat Electronics. And my mother, she is one of my role models, sports person. I mean, the women in the family have always been in sports, right? My grandmother was a tennis champion. My mother was a ball badminton national champion. And then, of course, my sister came into our life and she was a table tennis, and my daughter was into, gymnastics. So all of them have been in sports, and I think it's a very sporting family, I would say. So it's been a fantastic life, and I think life is a celebration, and I believe we should live a full life. So my childhood was brilliant. I mean, everything was perfect. I was blessed to be born in this great country, India, and that too my favorite city in the world, Bangalore.
Thank you so much. It's such a beautiful thing to listen about your own city at home. I've heard so many times you talking about the debates that you had when you were in national high school, the competitions that you used to go to, all the naughty things that you used to do in college. Can you just elaborate on one or two anecdotes of it so that we know the non-surgeon side of Dr. Girish Rao as well?
Well, as I told you, my parents were my inspiration. My father would push me in almost every competition, starting from my primary school. I still remember my first time I went on stage was probably in first standard, when I had to play in a drama and I forgot the lines completely.
That's hard to believe, sir.
I mean, I was just there and everybody said, come on, say something. And I made my own lines. So and we managed it. We camouflaged it even at that point of time. I still have that photograph at home. So during my primary school, I used to participate in a lot of competitions, and my father pushed me into that, I would say. He would actually write the script for me. I mean, this was the kind of secret. And it was brilliant, and I had to talk on the debates. It used to be the mono acting and the drama competitions. And we used to have cricket commentary competitions, so we used to listen to the radio, and then it was Gundappa Vishwanath or Chandrasekhar cricket. We used to comment on that. And on all these things, I used to get first prize. So, and from school, we had the inter-school competition. Our school, Saraswati Vidya Mandir, had about 13 branches, and the inter-school competition, the Madhavan Park branch where I was there, we had a very, very close-knit group, I would say. We used to go for all these competitions, and believe it or not, 50 years down the line, we are still together, that group. So that's my oldest group which I have. So childhood has been fantastic, from schooling days and things like that. So going on from my primary school to high school, I studied in another very famous school in Bangalore. That's the National High School. It's almost a century old now. And in that school, we were encouraged to very actively participate in debates, as well as in something called a science speaking contest. And at that time, that was a rage, science speaking contest. And we used to have inter-high school competitions across Bangalore. And one of the things which we used to do is, we were an all-boys school, and we would go and pick up the shield even before, that was the kind of, we were like bullies actually. And we had a fantastic team. Ramesh Arvind became a film actor. He was like a captain of our group, and I was there, and H.V. Satish was a plastic surgeon today. So we were all, and Ramanand, one more good friend of mine, was a scientist, although medical background. So we four used to go to almost every competition from 8th standard to 10th standard, and we won a lot of competitions. So those were really, really golden years, I would say.
Wonderful. Why dentistry after that?
Oh. I did pretty well even in my second PUC, and I got an admission into an engineering school, and I was waiting for the second list in a government school in the medical list. I had 91.3, and I was first in the merit in a private school. So I started thinking, what should I do? And something different. My father is an engineer, my grandfather was an engineer, and a lot of uncles of mine were all doctors. So I wanted to be something different, and I was looking for, let's not be just another face in the crowd. And that's when, just out of the blue, I get a letter saying that you are first in the merit list of dentistry at Government Dental College, and you need to go in within 24 hours and pay the admission fee to join dentistry, otherwise your seat would go off. And suddenly it struck to me, hey, dentistry, why not? And it just came out of the blue. I never ever thought that I would become a dentist. But I think somehow my gut feeling said, this is what you should get into. And I got into dentistry. Although I got into medicine, I gave up my medical seat to come into dentistry.
So dentistry was choice, not by chance.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I've been passionate about dentistry ever since I went in. And I believe that there are so many things you could do out of dentistry.
That's true. Those 5 years were a roller coaster, I'm sure. With all the biggies in GDC is the oldest institution in the country, and of course the first in Karnataka. So having come from GDC, the whole list of alumni itself are all legendaries. So even you're in the list of the legendaries who have come out of Government Dental College. So I'm sure those 5 years were a huge impact in your life going on.
Absolutely. When we were there, I think who is who of dentistry, at least in Karnataka, was there. We had Dr. Raju Shetty, who was the principal, Dr. Jagdish, who was the head of endodontics, Dr. Nagesh in oral medicine, and in every field actually we had the legends, I would say, of dentistry leading the departments, and that gave us a good molding, I would say. The value system which we were taught in the Government Dental College Bangalore was just out of the world. And even today, when we are a part of the alumni, which we meet regularly, the bonding just brings everybody from GDC together. And it's interesting that the 60th year celebration of GDC, we did it. In fact, we had a cruise in America, and we were almost about 400 of us. That was the kind of binding which we had from the first batch, which was, I still remember Dr. Mrutyunjaya, who was practicing in Rochester, and my daughter took up dentistry after me in the same school, and she was the 60th batch. So when we had the fashion show in the cruise from Los Angeles to Ensenada, which we went in, they actually led the fashion show.
First and the
60th batch. So that was something, it was the commandership which we had. I think that was something which was just fantastic. I'm blessed to be a part of Government Dental College, I would say.
It's wonderful, wonderful stories to hear, sir. So taking it a little ahead, how did your journey go about after you finished your undergraduation? A lot of students are, I assume, who are listening to this would be at a stage where they have finished their undergraduation and they are at sea. They don't know what to do next. What was your decision making? What were the thoughts running in your head?
I always, as I said, I wanted to be something different. So all the 4 years, I got actually a scholarship from Colgate Palmolive, being the first rank in the university. And I would invest in shares, believe it or not, those days itself.
The entrepreneur in you came out very
I
young.
used my scholarship money to buy shares, and that grew over a period of time. So I'm always keen on multiplying and sort of growing. So then at the end of dentistry, I was very, very keen that I should do surgery. And although I got second rank in the state, I got oral medicine and I took it up because I thought medicine is the key to foundation. So I took it with passion. And those days MBS used to be only 2 years. So almost a year I completed in oral medicine. That was a fantastic experience. So I then cracked the national exam and got 5th rank and moved into Chennai, in the government dental college of Chennai. And everybody wanted to become an orthodontist. Believe it or not, the first 10 ranks was always orthodontics, and I broke the kind of the routine there, I would say, by choosing surgery, right?
Yeah.
Surgery at that point of time was only extractions and probably wiring. That's all, most of them. And if you had a jaw tumor, we would resect it and no reconstruction. And simple pathologies is all which was being done at that point of time. I knew surgery is going to take off in a very, very big way. It's the gut feeling, the sixth sense says you don't limit yourself, grow beyond what it is. And that's how I chose maxillofacial surgery. And that's my passion. I mean, I've loved every bit of it. For 32 years, I've been practicing maxillofacial surgery. I breathe maxillofacial surgery, I sleep with maxillofacial surgery, and I love it. So that's my passion.
Wonderful. We cannot go ahead without talking about your madam, Dr. Manuja. We've heard so much. I mean, you are our inspiration and she was yours. So indirectly, even though we have not met her, I'm sure, we've always been inspired by how she was as a female maxillofacial surgeon. Just a few thoughts on that, sir.
I mean, Manuja madam was more of a mother figure to me. And when I went to Chennai, I don't know, it's just that, she just picked me up like that and said, I'm going to mold you, right, and train you. That's the kind of thing. Those days, surgery was a very, very male-dominated kind of thing. And especially in Tamil Nadu, if you really look at it. And she was that iron lady. And that's what which stuck to me. I said, if you really stick out and push yourself, people will give way, is what I thought. And that's what I would admire with her. And she had the guts to take up any surgery. I mean, be it a complicated TMJ ankylosis or a huge envelope. You used to get those endoblastomas which used to be huge, and we would resect them. We would never reconstruct them though. So, I mean, madam would make us work. We would start our work at 6:30 in the morning. Our OPD would start off at 6:30, and we would finish by about 1 o'clock. Everything is done. And our OPD used to, in Government Dental College, Chennai, I don't think anywhere you get that numbers. The surgery department, maxillofacial surgery department used to get on an average of 1,000 patients a day. Right? And I still remember once, the interns had all gone on a picnic, right, for a junior batch. And we were 4 postgraduates. The senior batch was actually preparing for the exams and they had taken off. So it was just 4 of us. And we had to, and some of our staff members also joined us. So it was a challenge which we had to take. Who would pull out maximum number of teeth? Right?
In that day.
In that day. And I still remember I counted something like 240 teeth.
Wow.
On a day. So the kind of experience for minor oral surgeries, what we had was just unbelievable. And even now, I can close my eyes, put a forceps in and feel the tooth, It's like, it just comes out into your head. That's
Listens
the kind
to
of
you, I think. That's how it
It's
works.
the bond between the tooth and the hand, which nobody else seems to understand.
Oh, it was amazing actually. I mean, the experience, what you get. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people say, yes, it's the kind of technique, but numbers also will, even if you haven't got the technique, the numbers itself will train you to become a good surgeon. And that's the kind of training we had in Chennai.
A lot of students who have finished their post-graduation feel that they're now ready to conquer the world and underestimate the value of training post their post-graduation. We would like to know from your life, how how did that happen? Your training after your post-graduation, and what are the things that you did, and how did you take your career ahead?
Yeah. You know, the moment you finish your post-graduation, you think you're a consultant maxillofacial surgeon. And the first thing which I did was also get a visiting card, right? And that had a consultant oral and maxillofacial surgeon. But little did I realize that I wasn't trained fully to take up maxillofacial surgery. I was very well trained to do oral surgery. There's a lot of difference between the two, I would say. Minor surgical work, absolutely no problems, more like gigs. But when it came down to more complicated things, I still remember when I took up a fellowship program in Kidwai, right? Kidwai is a cancer hospital in Bangalore, one of the premium cancer institutes, I would say. And my boss, Dr. Swami, at that point of time, what he said is, normal bleeding, and he said, put a knot on, ligate the vessel. And I did not know how to use a hand knot. As a surgeon, right? We would take the needle holder and stitch around the vessels, and that is how we were trained in Chennai, right? So it was something which I had never seen major surgeries, neck being opened and managing, the internal jugular vein and big vessels of the neck and things like that. So when he looked at the way in which I was handling simple, tying a vessel, he said, you need to go and train. So at that point of time, one of our surgical, MCH trainee, he was there. He probably molded me as a surgeon, Dr. Vijay Kumar. He became then the director of Kidwai, and then now he's the vice chancellor of Yenapoya, Yenapoya University. He took me under him, and I would go and work with him for every surgical case. Whether it's abdominal surgery or whether it is cervix or breast or prostrate, anything and everything he would actually take. For 3 months I worked with him. And that general surgical training completely transformed the way in which we started thinking. So I think every maxillofacial surgeon should be trained in general surgery very, very well. And that's something which is very, very important. Another thing which happened is, just as I was finishing my post-graduation, we had never been to a conference, right? And maxillofacial congress. So in Dharwad, at that time AMSI was conducting a conference, and because it was in South India, I went and pleaded my madam manager. And generally postgraduates were never allowed to go to any conferences at that point of time, right? And because I was a favorite, I went and pleaded. So all 4 of us who were postgraduates, Vinod and myself and Dr. Venkataraman, we all, a couple of times we requested, said, okay, go. So when we came to Dharwad, first time I was introduced to things like orthognathic surgery, and reconstruction of TMJ with costochondrography. We just resect a gap arthroplasty is all which we were doing. And when we saw the kind of things, and John Williams had come in. This was the book we used to read. Like, he was a god for us, Williams, maxillofacial textbook of trauma was like, he was somewhere there. We would pray like, it was like Vishnu for us, right? And I'm saying it, and I'm talking to him. So I got inspired. And at that point of time, the key person from Indian side was Paul Simmons. He is my role model, right? And he was doing an orthognathic surgery, and he was giving all these lectures. And we'd never seen an orthognathic surgery. We had read about orthognathic. It was only a textbook surgery for us. So in the evening, when we were all having a beer, all our friends, some of our postgraduates, I remember Suresh Shetty and Vinod and Dr. Gopal and a couple of others, Dr. Krishnamurthy. We all said, if these guys can do it, I just mooted this idea. Why can't we do orthognathic surgery? Right? Everybody laughed. I think all of us should go to UK, is what we said. Let's go and train. This is the mecca for us. This is the first time we're seeing something like that. And that's how a bunch of us, we all went to UK and we trained over there. And some of them stayed back. I still have good friends like Yatunandan and Suresh Shetty who are still there, and some of us came back and we started training the next generation, and that's how a lot of things have changed in India today. So I think the scope is there for the youngsters to really believe that there is so much of potential in this beautiful specialty of maxillofacial surgery. So it's just the passion. You need to drive, you need to be in the driving seat, and sky's the limit of what you can achieve.
I think that decade of UK dream and that actually happening is for another podcast, because the stories that we've heard through you as and when we've gone, as and when we've been through, is just amazing, and it's very difficult, I'm sure, to pick up just a few anecdotes of it. But few people you want to remember from those days.
Yeah, I went to UK at end of 91 and came back in 99. So it's the whole of 90s, I would say, was something, probably the best part of my life. In terms of work, had a fabulous training. I cannot ask for anything better than that. One of the biggest advantages was I was already well trained, I would say, from India in terms of certain skills, and I was keen to polish a lot of these things and learn some new things. So it was already there, and UK at that point of time was really, really good. So I started off in Canisburn Hospital in Glasgow, and I must say that Prof. Moose, he was one of the greatest craniofacial surgeons at that point of time, and he was such a source of inspiration. He would work from morning till night. The kind of energy which he had was just mind-boggling. So that was an observer post, but that was really, really something which pushed me to think that we should be doing craniofacial surgery in India. And then I moved into another very, very quiet place. It's like the English Riviera. It's called as Torquay, and that is in the southwest of England. Very quiet place. But my boss, Dr. Hugh Walters, Mr. Hugh Walters, he's also no more, sadly. Again, a very, very traditional Englishman. He had long sideburns and then long hair, and he would wear a monocle. And I thought, what am I going to do with this man? When I first went to the he would come on a horse sometimes to the hospital. Believe it or not, he was an avid horse rider. And full of life. He would go for hunting, and I learned that there is so much to life with him, but he was the most tech-savvy man I'd ever seen. You wouldn't believe that this guy was a musician. He would compose music, he would write programs in computers, he would do oncology, he would do orthodontic surgery. He was a single qualified guy. So he was my source of inspiration again, and it was amazing to work with him. And again, he loved me. So he allowed me to do a lot of things. But it was a very quiet place. Torquay had its own thing. And then I moved to London as a registrar at one of the oldest hospitals, St. Bart's and Royal London. And I had some fantastic bosses. I don't know, I would say guru is something, you need to, when the student is ready, you get the guru is what they say. And probably I was ready to learn more. My hunger was so much. And I was very lucky to work with one of the most aggressive maxillofacial surgeons I've ever come across. Is Ian Hutchison, my boss. I love him. He would make me work from 6 in the morning till 12 in the night. There's nothing other than work, right? He's an oncology surgeon. We would do a hell lot of oral oncology. What was impossible, we would make it happen, right? So that's something which gave me a lot of kind of hands-on training and the kind of confidence that you can do a lot of things. And even if there is a complication, you could do it. We did a lot of thyroids, we did a lot of parotids, and I would say headectomies. It's not just ordinary resection. Sometimes we used to get huge tumors. I still remember one patient came from Africa, Hakim Shitta his name was. He was a photographer. He looked like Brahma, 3 heads. One huge tumor like this, he had another tumor coming up from the occipital. It was like a head, right? And we resected that and reconstructed this guy with so much of funding coming from all over the world. So my boss was a celebrity surgeon kind of thing. So I learned a lot from him. And I also had 2 more other bosses, I would say, although there were 5 or 6 of them, but I would definitely say Kiran Coughlin, again a very, very meticulous surgeon, right? Precision to the core in the way in which you take a bite, how much it has to be from the edge of the mucosa. It has to be 2 or 3 millimeters. Watertight closures. Especially for aesthetic work, orthopedic surgery, if you have to move the maxilla by 3 millimeters, it had to be bang on 3 millimeters. Today, you have 3D technology and you can print it. Ours was all freehand. We would actually cut the models, plaster of Paris models, and move things. So it was something amazing, the kind of precision. And the third boss in London again was John Carter. And he would give me a free hand. He was a combination of Ian Hutchison and Kieran Cotton. He had the precision, but also the guts of it. So it was like a, the finishing school was with John Carter, I would say. And three bosses really did. And these were the Trimurtis which polished me, I would say, before I came to India. And it was a fantastic journey in India. I mean, in the UK. So I loved it.
Moving on, you spoke about having a complete life. So we cannot complete talking to you without the role of your family, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to get into how you got married and what was the story there, and how ma'am has actually elevated you as a person and also as a surgeon.
Yeah, I mean, Sujatha is my wife, and we got married in '94. On one of the trips where I came from, from UK, my mom had selected 3 girls actually. It's just one of them is what she accepted. It was after all the shortlisting and all. The moment I saw Sujatha, I just fell for her. She was a young, innocent girl, and she was only 20 at that point in time. And I just fell head over heels in love with her. Got married to her, and in about 3 weeks, I'd taken her off to UK. I mean, she had no clue at all that she was going to UK, and we had a fabulous time. I mean, I would say, as I told you, Torquay was such a beautiful place. It was by the sea and pretty quiet place. So we had almost a year of honeymoon, I would say. Fantastic time I had, and then we traveled extensively across UK and then the whole of Europe actually. I love traveling, and I would just say to the car, okay, which direction? We never had GPS or anything like that at that point of time, right? We never had. We had to take the maps. You had the A to Z maps and the road maps, big maps, and she was the navigator. So, okay, today we go to Devon, right? From Devon we would go to, it could be the next one, it's Cornwall, or sometimes to East Anglia, or sometimes she would say, shall we go to London to have masalas? She would travel all the way to about 250 miles to eat a dosa and come back, and we really had a great life that way. And she has been the backbone to me. She would hate, all my photographs. I loved all taking photographs and documenting. I would say, this is surgical pornography, How come I look so bare, she would say, all the blood and bone and things like that. But initially she would hate it, but then she started organizing everything and making all my presentations and things like that. And we have, come through this journey together, and she has been completely everything what I am today. She is with me in that. So.
Wonderful. Traveling the world, you've traveled over 60 countries in the world till now. So what have you learned from different cultures through traveling the world? I mean, of course, surgery is your passion, it's such a major part of your life. But I think the culture that we put in work as well as in life depends on all the experiences that you've had, not just in one place, but across the world. So can you tell us some cultural experiences, something that you learned?
I mean, coming from India, we are already exposed to a lot of different cultures in India. I mean, India has its own different cultures, different foods. Every state has its own kind of charm. But that had already prepared me that there is so much of differences in different parts of the world. And when I started traveling, I like to go not into the traditional kind of touristic place. Yes, you have to visit, when you go to Paris, and you have to see Eiffel Tower and, all the important places and things like that. But the beauty is actually when you go into the small places over there and see how people live. Whether it's in Japan or whether it is in America or whether it's in Africa or Middle East. I always go to a small, corner shop kind of thing or a small supermarket kind of thing, and you see local people and take walks around there, early morning and evening walks and things like that. And you see that every human being is the same. At the end of the day, we are all the same. We may be living in Japan, we may have a different culture, different religion, different language, different food, but humanity is just the same. Whether it's in South America or whether it is in Africa or in Asian continents. absolutely the same. People are people and they are nice. They connect you, and if you're talking to them and you give them a bit of respect, any country I'm telling you, they respect you even more. I have places where people look at me and then they think that I'm an alien and taking photographs of me. It's happened to me in China. I went to a remote place. You know, even in Thailand when I went to a place called Ayutthaya, which is the old capital, right? Ayodhya, which we have, so their old capital before Bangkok was Ayutthaya. And we went into a very, very small village and people had never seen an Indian, I think. You know, brown color and different, black hair and things like that. So they all came into photographs. It was like a specimen or something like that, or maybe a celebrity, God knows who it is. But what I'm saying is there is love. The human love is there everywhere. So I think we are all just the same. It really doesn't matter. We all eat to enjoy and then sleep every day and then have a nice family and have a good laugh, and that's what the whole humanity is about. So I love traveling, and I've done probably about 64, 65 now, and I would like to hit a century. That's my dream.
Can't wait.
Another 20 years I want to travel, so 20 or 30 years if you are still around. When you're born, one thing which I would like to tell youngsters is start early. I'm telling you, every decade there is a huge difference. I'm in mid-50s now. I'm telling you the kind of energy what you have in your 20s to the 30s to the 40s, 50s, and I think probably in 60s it's even less. So you need to push yourself, so start very early. I love to do a lot of trekking, and that's something which you should start doing early.
Right. So from what we hear of it, your UK stint was a roller coaster, and it was high and you were at the pinnacle of success, and then you decided to come back to India. How did that happen? And to a lot of people, when you came back to India, were things served to you in a platter?
It was tough actually. It was a big decision which you always, when you come to a crossroad and then you start looking which way you want to take the fork, it's very difficult. I had a couple of choices. I could have stayed back in England, done my medicine there. In UK you have to be doubly qualified, so you got to go back into medical school and then get into again another surgical training and then become a consultant. So that was something like 8 years ahead. And then the other option was I had a fellowship which had come up in Texas with Larry Woodford actually. He offered me when I went to the American thing. So I was looking at, I went and visited his unit, and then I went and saw US also. But I felt America was not mine. I didn't want to settle there. It's a lovely country. I love to go to America. But I felt something was drawing me in. And I felt it is important to go to India back. In the meantime, I also had an offer from Saudi Arabia. I was thinking, but my bosses said, no, you're not going. So we trained you to go to India. And so I felt my wife also was instrumental. And she said, I'm more comfortable going back to India. Let's raise our children in India. So that's how we took a decision, a conscious decision to come back to India. It was a struggle. I was earning something like, today's rupees about 4 lakh, something like 5,000 pounds or something like that at that point of time as a senior registrar. And suddenly, I was coming to about 200 pounds a month. Right? It's like 12,000 rupees is what I was earning when my first salary came up. But it was quite a challenge. And India, nobody, gives you an open kind of platter or anything like that. I had a job. My boss, Dr. K.S. Nagesh, one of my teachers, mentors, he offered me straight away when he had visited us in the UK. He said, whenever you want to come to India, come and join my school. That was Army Dental School, where I had a stint for almost about 16 years. I was professor and head there. So I had a job, but that was only 200 pounds is what, 12,000 what I started. But money was not everything in life, right? So you always wanted to come there. Then slowly you set up your practice. And that's how we started the whole journey. It was tough in the initial stages, but I loved every bit of coming. When you have everything going very well, there is no fun in that. You need to have some roadblocks. You need to again change gears, shift gears, and say, hey, I'm going to conquer this too. And that's what I did in India. I love my surgeries. Must have done 20,000 plus surgeries over here in my span of 22 years in India, back in India. 1999, I came back in May. So from then on, it's been a fantastic journey. I've loved every bit of it. So every country is good. I always believe the time you had in the UK, was the best. When I think now in India, I think I'm having a great life too. So you live that moment is what I believe in.
Nice. So you had all these mentors across all parts of your life, and then you became a mentor to so many students. So from all the mentors to you giving the mentorship about teaching and education, what do you have to say?
I think I was blessed to have some great teachers, starting from Dr. Nagesh to Dr. Kumar Swami and my UK bosses, Vanaja Madam, and so many of them who inspired me. And I think, when you take and put this hat on as a teacher, it's a moral obligation that knowledge has to be passed on. And I think it's such a great thing when you teach your students what skills you know, and when you see your students or trainees doing better than you, that's the biggest joy. I feel the greatest joy for any teacher is when he sees his students better than them. Right? I want you guys to be better than me. That's how the generations should be. And if you look at evolution, that is how we have all progressed. And I think that's a natural progression. And I hope more and more youngsters, when you become teachers, you train the next generation so that they are better than you. So our specialty grows and everybody benefits out of that. That's the basic philosophy.
So one of the impressions that we first see you is the brilliance in your face. And I'm sure there is the happiness of being successful at work coming through it, having a good family coming through it, but also we see a spark of spirituality within you. So what is the wisdom that you have learned through your spiritual journey? Need not be a religious journey, a spiritual journey from within that has come about.
Mm-hmm. I think, I probably was an atheist during my childhood days, and being a rebel, I always questioned what religion is, and I was like one of those scientists who always felt that there is nothing like God or anything like that. I never believed that there is God, and I was against that kind of institutionalizing God. But then when you start maturing and when you start looking at science, and especially when you come into medical and surgical field, that's when wisdom comes in, I think. As you age, when you see, this is all thanks to L'Oreal, I'm still looking young. But I think with age, you get that kind of practical kind of experience, and you start thinking there's so many limitations which you can do. And that's where there's something, maybe an energy, maybe a bigger force than what you are. And that is what we call as God, right? So I think there is so much of, at the end of the day, both science and spirituality, they meet, and that's, you can't differentiate between the two. And this is something which you should experience. And that's where you start believing in certain magic which can happen, especially when there's a bad case for us, and you're helpless. You've done your level best. And that's where you say, let me pray and hope that this patient recovers. So the goodness in you probably is transformed to the patient, and the patient revives or whatever it is, or God has shown His mercy on the patient, and the patient has just revived and come out of whatever they've been through. So even a hopeless case sometimes becomes fantastic.
What is the art of decision making, sir? Because sometimes you said that there is some, higher force which is actually telling you to do something, but your science, your education has told you to do something, and sometimes both of it combines for you to have that, say, yes, this is what I want to do and this is best. So what is the art of decision making?
I think as a clinician, you need to have a logical kind of thinking. There is a pattern for everything. So you need to first of all go through all that, right? And then I always believe that there are multiple solutions for a problem. You can't just have one solution. So it starts with planning. For me, for every situation, whether it's for any surgery also, I have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. 4 solutions I would have thought of. And then I ponder whether it's a simple surgery or whether it's a very complicated surgery. If there is a very complicated surgery, I put it into my mind and go to sleep with that. This is how I've done. Any complications which are there, I always think and sleep with that problem. And generally when you wake up in the morning, there's some solution which you have, because your brain is working throughout. Whether you call that as an instinct or a gut feeling or whatever, sixth sense, I don't know. But I think you wake up and many a times the sixth sense says, hey, I think if you do this, you're probably going to be right. And you follow that. And that instinct is very, very important. And that comes with experience also. It's not just that you believe that it is possible and things like that. You need to collectively start putting all your experience together, and I think it worked many times. But logical sequence is the key. That's probably 90%. And then that other 10% is where you probably use your experience and take your sixth sense.
So I remember having this conversation with you once, that a surgeon is a combination of his training as well as his natural talents, instincts, as you said, which develops over a period of time. So to a young surgeon who is just taking baby steps, what would you advise him in order to become a good surgeon, when he should rely on his logic, when he should rely on his instinct, and when he should carefully make it a combination of both of it?
I think for any young surgeon, the key is training. They need to find a good mentor. And you cannot learn surgery by just reading. You cannot learn surgery by just watching, a video and saying, hey, I'm going to perform that. It's like when you want to swim, you need to jump into the water. It's exactly the same thing. You need to do that. But to jump into the water, you must know how to swim and not drown. Right? It's like that. So you need to find a good mentor who can actually hold your hand, who is genuinely good, who will train you. So that's very, very important. And be patient. You need to have that passion. I believe for anybody to become a good surgeon, after your MDS, I'm talking your post-graduation, you need to be trained and kind of nurtured for at least another 5 to 8 years. That's the time when you're slowly given that independent kind of thing and you start taking good, bold decisions, and then you're ready to go. And that's what I have believed, that whoever has worked with me, I want them to independently set up their own units, because that is how specialties will grow, right? You cannot have somebody just always under your shadow. More new people should come, and then these kids should start their own kind of setup. So I think passion, your sincerity and hard work is the key for your success. All other things, it's 99%, which is perspiration, and 1% is inspiration. That what I totally agree on that. I mean, this is something which you need to work hard for.
So in the 60s, 70s and 80s, the technology was still not as much as what we have right now, the exposure. I still remember you saying that if I had to make a trunk call to India, I had to book it, wait for so long, then all I had to do is talk for a few minutes to my parents, and that's about it. And hospital use calls used to come through pagers and things like that. So technology then and technology now has had a huge leap. Today, every day the technology is changing. And for you to have seen that and for you to have seen this, what is it that is making the world run today?
Yeah, as you said, I'm lucky. I had, no technology or very, very scanty technology at that point of time. Sometimes scanty is also nice, in different ways, I would say. But I think if you have technology, you need to embrace it. And it makes your life so much easier. It's more predictable. I mean, the way in which today we are using 3D printed technology, we are using AI, we are using machine learning, has made life so much easier. I mean, what would take us so much of planning today, we can do a lot of virtual planning and, with augmented reality and virtual reality. These things are very, very good. But there is something which I would like to tell the youngsters. There is a human factor also. I've been to some of the tumor board meetings where you don't even have a patient and everything is discussed over there. You get the CT over there, you get the pathology over there, you have every investigation in the tumor boards which we follow in routine discussions. But examining the patient, taking a good history, listening to the patient is probably the key. If you want to be successful, you need to bring in tradition with the latest technology together. And if you marry these two things together, then you are a super winner. Trust me. You need to see your patient. You need to listen to them. Listen a lot. Because what the patient wants is more important than what you give. Right? So understanding your patient, just giving that element of confidence to your patient, holding their hands and just saying that I'm going to take care of you is so important. There is a huge psychological factor, and that patient-doctor relationship you get only when you are humane. You need to have empathy, not sympathy. You need to have empathy. You need to feel for the patient, genuinely feel for it. Then I think the sky's the limit to what you can achieve.
Speaking of these things and how passionate you are about it, you have worn many hats. A doctor, a surgeon, a teacher, an administrator, an entrepreneur. What is that you have within yourself? What keeps you going, taking up different roles? And how do you manage to enjoy all of it, sir? There are some times when you must be feeling, oh God, I can't do this anymore, and throw that hat away. But I never seem to see you doing that at all. So how do you manage to keep yourself going?
Love your life. That's all I can say. Love what you do. And do so many things. There's so much. I wish I was at least 30 years younger. I like to go on a bike. I like to golf. I like to travel. I like to, when I go to my farm, I love my agricultural kind of, I'm doing a lot of organic farming now. I take my tractor, I do a lot of new things. In fact, I drove a JCB, and that's probably, when I see some of these kind of things, just to plow the land up like this and lift it up and putting it into a tractor is something with a JCB. I felt, my God, there's so much of talent, there's so much to learn. And that hand, eye and mind coordination is something which is really, really good. So do a lot of things, keep yourself busy, and life is a celebration. I think the day you stop enjoying these kind of things, that's the end of your day. You should be passionate, live a life fully. God has given you this kind of, He sent you for a purpose, and I think you should love it. Live a full life. That's my kind of thing. And I'm enjoying every bit of it. Honestly, so many things which I do, I really, really enjoy it. Love your family, love your students, love your, your country, your whole world. And that's where when we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, there's so much relevant. The whole world is one family. And that's true. It's just that, silly people say that, oh, I'm colored, I'm this religion, that region. Yeah, I think it's all silly differences. We need to just do away with that and say that we are one big human family. Love it. And be good to the environment. Nature has given us so much of blessings. Enjoy that. Why do you want to spoil it? Right? Contribute something to that instead. So the day you start shifting from always basically taking things to becoming a giver or a contributor, things become really, really different. So I believe that there is a huge opportunity for every human being to contribute something back to the mother nature, society, whatever we call it.
So there are 5 decades that you have seen through the past. What do you predict for the next 5 decades?
I don't know. I like surprises. Honestly. I want that surprise. I still believe that there is going to be so much fun in life.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I really am looking forward. I don't think I'm ever going to retire or probably do something more interesting than what I've been doing so far. I think there is going to be so much more. I mean, we are going to do a lot of things. I mean, we never had communication becoming so much easier. As you said earlier, making a telephone call was like, so expensive and so difficult from UK to call my family. And today on WhatsApp, you have free communication, a video call which you can do any part of the world. And I still remember when I was doing my thesis, I did on TMJ prosthesis, on TMJ replacement for ankylosis. That was 32 years back, or 34 years back, right? At that point of time, to look for any articles, I had to go to Manipal from Chennai to look into the journals, and then we used to have cards, we used to write in them all the references and things like that, and then come back. So there's so much of effort. Today, at the drop of the hat, on your phone, sitting anywhere in the world, you can basically see what anybody else is doing. So there is so much of sharing of information which is there. So use it. And I'm sure you probably can, go into any OT and see somebody doing, and then next day come back into your own OT and replicate the same thing. So probably, transporting yourself, or what is that called, as transponding yourself or something like that, what we used to see in Star Trek, probably is going to happen.
Why not? We can even go to Mars and do surgeries someday. We never know.
Speaking of surgery, sir, a lot of surgeons speak about the success, the triumphs. I'm sure in your career, you have seen many of failures. So, two parts of this question. First is, how do you respond to a failure? And second thing, how do you react it in a period of time? How do you get over it? For any young surgeon listening today, that could be the most important lesson.
Correct. I mean, if you haven't got a failure, I think probably you haven't done much. The more you do, then there are possibilities of you getting a lot of problems too. I won't call that as a failure, but problems. I'll give you one simple example. I had a young kid who came with a small hemangioma of the tongue, and I sent him for a simple, usual workup where you do an angiogram and then a pre-operative embolization. There was a complication which happened, and unfortunately the kid had a stroke and died even before I went in and operated on the patient. And that was very, very traumatic. I mean, when somebody comes trusting you and something like this happens, it will completely devastate. I mean, why did such a thing happen to such an innocent kid who was full of life, right? And I hadn't even operated on this kid, and it completely puts you in that kind of low mood for quite some time. And as a surgeon, I think it's absolutely important that you're strong. Our training gives you that kind of thing, that you need to disconnect, although there is a huge emotional kind of problem with that. But it's important that you are strong. There are limitations to what you can do. You can do a surgery to one extent, but the complete, I would say, the outcome depends on so many factors. The patient factor is very, very important, right? Whether the patient was cooperative, had he had any medical issues. Many times complications happens because of medical problems. So that is something which you shouldn't take it to your heart.
So it's important to detach yourself from the result.
Absolutely. So when you get something really, really great, don't get overboard. Nor when it goes down and you have a failure, don't get depressed either. So be balanced, and I think that is probably the key.
So they say that the world is shrinking by technology, because we've spoken so much about technology. But we also feel that it is dividing by thought, with all the social secularists, so many things happening in the society per se. What are your thoughts about it? Are we actually dividing by thought? As a society, where are we going?
Nice question. I think probably because of so much of information overload, people are becoming extremely isolated. There's so much of things which you can do just on your phone, and people are not socializing that much. And unfortunately, I think it's nice to know what others are doing, but doing anything in excess or overdoing is not a good idea. So I think that the human factor is very, very important. I think socializing, family members, not sitting together and having a meal together, that social bonding, friends meeting up together. I mean, maybe just for a coffee together and just having a chit chat probably is much more fun than saying hi and talking through WhatsApp or through social media. So I think we need to be very, very, very cautious about the way in which, as a society, we are going. And I think that has implications in terms of kind of depressions and suicidal tendencies and things like that. You don't get belonging to a group or something like that if you don't physically interact with people. So it's important to have these technologies, but I think our old values of meeting and socializing and just having a get together is probably very, very important.
So speaking on being together, what are your thoughts about the art of networking? How important is it to be successful? And also the art of team building. We often see that you always believe and want to convey the idea of togetherness. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you know, you can go to one extent being alone. I mean, you can be a winner, but if you collectively grow and as a team, I think the amount to which you can actually succeed is probably way, way, way beyond what you can individually, achieve. So I think very early on, I think it's absolutely important, especially for young maxillofacial surgeons. It's important that you hone on your skills. You know, I mean, today in our surgical specialty, maxillofacial surgery, you have trauma, you have oncology, you have clefts, you have craniofacial, you have simple dental implants. You cannot be good at everything. I mean, we were lucky that we had the entire exposure or the gambit of maxillofacial surgery, and I still do everything. I mean, but when I see the next generation, I think it's much, much better that you subspecialize. And when you subspecialize, it's absolutely important that you form teams, right? So one person could actually take trauma, the other could be doing oncology, somebody else could be doing, craniofacial work. And when you get this team together, you get collective kind of, the skills together, and each person brings to the table their skills. So the patient benefits more, and very soon you can actually become an expert in that chosen subspecialty is what I'm saying. So I think it's absolutely important that we work together, and there's so much more benefit with team building.
Because why the networking question we wanted to ask you is because I think you probably know half the world, if we're not wrong. So how to keep that bond going in? So maybe we wouldn't have met our colleagues or our doctors for a very long time, but still maybe we require them to refer a patient or tell somebody in our family that you can go to them. But even after so many years, we see when you give a call, that cordial relationship still exists.
Absolutely.
And that is something which we always aspire to have with family, with friends, with our medical colleagues, with our dental colleagues, with our teachers, with our juniors. Because now I think we've already lost touch with our juniors in undergraduation and maybe even our batchmates in post-graduation. So how does that happen, sir?
I think the world has shrunk so much in a way. If you look at it from a different perspective, patients come from different parts of the world. I mean, when we were training, we had to go, to different countries to train. And now what's happened is the technology is so good in India, the expertise is so good, and we have the numbers actually. So you need to capitalize on it. And that's something which I would like to tell all our youngsters. It's absolutely important that you become bloody good in that, right? And you become a world authority. Publish it, talk about it. It's absolutely important. So what happens is patients will come from different parts of the world. Now if you have a network, now when they go back to their own country, your own old friends and your batchmates and things like that. It's always nice to say, hey, this patient came from there, can you take care of that kind of thing? Right. So I think it's very, very important. Man is a social animal, right? So we need to socialize a lot. You need to keep your connections still open. And it's always nice to receive a patient from another part of the world and your friend sends them to you, or you send to your friends, right, for taking care or whatever it is. So it could be an orthodontist. I have some orthodontists from US. They send their patients to me to do the orthodontic surgery, and we plan on the net. Basically, we have a Zoom call. We decide with the patient sitting there. This is the kind of treatment. This is the kind of outcome, and the orthodontics is done over there. And he comes over, flies to India, gets the orthodontic surgery. We have had quite a few of these patients coming in. So that network is very, very vital for your growth. So definitely I would recommend keep your friends very happy.
So speaking of patients, they say that for a surgeon to become a wholesome product, he requires the support of his family, his training, his mentors, they say the most crucial aspect of a surgeon to become a surgeon are his patients. So, what are the top of your mind patients that you can think of who have helped you become a better surgeon?
I think you learn a lot from your patients. This is something which you need to know. Every patient who comes to you has something different, and that's the uniqueness about our surgical specialty, right? You might be doing a simple wisdom tooth, or it could be an orthodontic surgery, you're pushing the jaw back, or it could be a cancer surgery. Everything is a challenge. So every patient is actually teaching you. So know that kind of thing. And I think to carry on, I think the feedback that you get from your patients is very, very vital. So when some patient says, I'm not very happy with the outcome, then you need to really, really have a course correction, right? Why is this not the way I had planned, right? The best result is when you're happy and your patient is also happy. The worst thing is you're very happy and the patient is unhappy, right? So it's absolutely important that you basically know how the response from the patient is. So, learn from your patients. A lot of patients have inspired me, and I must say one patient who stands out, which really melted my heart, is this man. His name is Krishna. He came all the way from Mauritius. I'm talking almost about 15 years back. And he had a maxillary tumor, and they couldn't operate on him there. So they came to India and we did a maxillectomy. We gave him an obturator, and that was held with implants. So he was very, very happy, right? Mm-hmm. And when he came back for follow-up, his son, this daughter-in-law was pregnant at that point of time. And they came back after about 6 months, and they said, Doc, we have a surprise for you. So they showed me a photograph. You know what we have named this guy? Girish Krishna.
Wow.
That is something which really melted me, I mean, the kind of love which you get from your patients is something which makes you feel that you should do much more than what you can expect. So I always believe in the fact that give more than what they expect from you, and I think you're going to really, really be very happy with that kind of outcome.
How do you think people's stories will impact other people going through the same situations? Because we do tell a lot of anecdotes to patients who are going through something which is of course not desirable to them, the reason why they come to us. But when we share their stories, they'll be like, oh, okay, maybe they went through and they conquered it. And with this program, I think we are intending to do the same thing. So how do you think it will impact others?
I think a happy patient is extremely capable of actually allaying away the fears of so many other patients, right? They've been through that. I mean, whatever you might say, what we explain to the patients, the pros and cons of the surgery, is nothing compared to when a patient who has been through that, and this patient was about to go for surgery, he sees somebody who has already, crossed the shore. All right. So the connect which they get is much, much better. So many a times what I do is in the OPD when they're there, and the first time they come to us and they speak to us about the cancer and what's the problems and what they are anticipating with that, I explain to them in detail. And then, that usually in the OPD there are a couple of patients who are sitting there, especially in oncology or even in orthodontic surgery when we do the joint clinics with my orthodontist. Those days what tends to happen is we have quite a few patients who are pre-op and some of them would have been post-op at different phases there. So it's always nice you just introduce the post-op patient to the pre-op patient. Of course, you need to take their permission before you actually, take their permission and then introduce. And the magic happens. So you don't have to worry. And I've seen time and again, patients come back to you, they come and say, Doc, when shall I get my surgery done? So that's the easiest way of actually, getting this fear out of the patients.
Speaking about carrying on, we always talk about what legacy should we leave behind. And I'm sure I have not told you this story. When I was in my second year of undergraduation in GDC, it was a Sunday morning, and there was nobody in the college, and it was only one surgery PG who was there, and there came a patient who had got a bad injury, and he had a laceration extending across his face. And since he had no one, he just asked me to assist. and that is when I was shown the world of maxillofacial surgery. And the first thing that I went back and did was opened YouTube and typed oral and maxillofacial surgeon. The first video that I saw was a learn maxillofacial surgeon video. You operating on a gentleman from Nairobi who had a bullet wound, and I said, yes, this is what I want to become. And I'm sure I'm just resonating a tale of many such stories. So you've inspired so many people, and I'm sure many more are there who will be inspired with you from your work and from your words as well. So what legacy do you wish to leave behind, sir?
I love maxillofacial surgery, and the biggest joy is when the youngsters like you guys actually take up this specialty with passion. And I think if I can inspire probably about 1,000 maxillofacial surgeons across the country, we have made a big difference, or I have made a big difference. So that's what I'm looking at. And now that I've taken a leadership role as the secretary of our association, the Association of Maxillofacial Surgeons of India, I believe that there is such a huge potential. Collectively, if we start doing a lot of things across the country, my dream is, India should be a leader in every aspect, and especially in maxillofacial surgery. I mean, people should look up to our protocols, right? Our ways of treating. They should say, hey, in India they are doing it. My dream is if somebody in America can actually follow our techniques, be it in cancer. Oral cancer is, India is the capital of oral cancer, right? They don't even see, 1/100th of what we actually see in India. So we've always been following Sloan Kettering or MD Anderson. And I think if our association, that's what my dream is, that we put up certain protocols in the management of cancer. These are things which I'm looking at too. And I must say that I was very glad when I was teaching at RB Dental College. I didn't have that many postgraduates, and I still remember a batch where I had to, and a group of interns were there, and they used to come every day and assist me in surgeries. And then I think probably there were about 15 or something like that. 10 of them took up maxillofacial surgery. So that's the kind of thing which you can just ignite that spark. I got ignited because Paul Sellers, did something wonderful, and I think that is what every human being is capable of doing some things. And if you can just ignite that spark, they will, achieve a lot more. So I think probably that is what I would like to leave behind. I would also like to say that a lot of patients can inspire a lot of things. And that's where, from Mukha facial surgery, that's where I practice. I would like to basically bring in a lot of interesting patients. Just have a video podcast, which they would like to share to the public, to the whole world, and talk about how their lives have got changed. And that's where we are looking at a new kind of podcast which we would like to introduce, and that's where I would like to bring about Vidhi. Vidhi is fate, and the thing which basically, a whole series of interviews which I want you youngsters to talk to my patients, and let the people know how they have, been winners basically. They've been through so much of difficulties in life, and they have facial injuries or cancer or their facial deformities which we have corrected. And if they can share their experience with you, walk the time and, just share their stories with everybody, that is something which I would love to do next. So that's my new project which I would like to take up. And thank you for giving me this beautiful chance to talk to two wonderful people like you.
The honor is all ours, sir. We thank you for the opportunity that we have got, and we hope to keep the fire burning. We hope to take the baton ahead and give people a reason to smile.
Absolutely.
and give them hope in their own lives.
Right.
The other part of the podcast, what we have is that we are bringing in all the achievers who have inspired a lot of people, doctors and other people in the society who have done great. So along with the patients who are there to tell stories for other patients who are sailing in the same boat, we also want people like us who can be inspired by so many people like you.
Absolutely.
And across the country and across the world, and with the network that you have, I'm sure will be able to all of them can be our acquaintances at some point of time, and we'll be able to bring in achievers as well as conquerors and make this podcast a household name.
Absolutely. I'd love to see that.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Presenting Vidhi, the footprints on the sands of time. Thank you.
Vidhi, the podcast is dedicated to tales of healing and facilitators of health and well-being. This is a Mukha facial surgery initiative produced and brought to you by Dr Girish Rao and Mrs. Sujatha Girish. The podcast is hosted by Dr Sri Gauri and Dr Sai Swaroop. Thank you for listening.